What's up, mountain movers? It is June the 7th, 2024. My name is Stewart Shurtleff. I live here in Dallas. I'm a construction attorney at a law firm called Rothberg, Shurtleff, Dang. As Kevin alluded to last week, sometimes we go by RSD. I've known Kevin for a long time. I've been practicing construction law for about 20 years. But Kevin and I have been doing a little podcast called 1720 for the last three or 4 years. When Kevin asked me to do the Mountain Mover Spotlight for this Friday, this was months ago, to which I said, yeah, sure, absolutely, no problem. Happy to do it, man. Would love the opportunity to do it. But as the time came closer to record, I kept getting jammed up thinking after almost 100, well, slightly over 180 hours of our podcast, I don't know what to say. We feel like it's all been said, and I just don't want to repeat things over and over. And then the universe, if you will, brought to Dallas these storms from a couple of weeks ago. Kevin alluded to it in his update from last week. But if you don't live in the metroplex, it's been a crazy spring, summer season for us. We had tornadoes three weeks ago in far north Dallas. And then a week or so later, we had a section of storms roll through, just what you would think would be your traditional spring thunderstorms, but straight line winds, in the northern part of the metroplex, in the 90-mile-an-hour range. And those storms blew through my neighborhood in far north Dallas and did some pretty good damage. Again, Kevin alluded to it last week, but if you needed to get to the office last week, there were trees down, power lines down, folks without power for quite some time. And there was a tree just 2 streets north of me that was down. Thankfully, it had fallen away from the house across the street, and the canopy of the tree just slapped the neighbor's house across the street. Not a lot of actual damage, well, except for the car getting trapped under it. Not a lot of actual damage done to the homes, but the tree was huge. I mean, huge. Probably 2 of me's couldn't put my arms around the trunk of this thing. It had been there for a long, long time. And it just got me to thinking, why did a tree like that fall, right? From the outward appearance of that tree, it was tall, it was older, it was strong, it was healthy, it was sturdy, and yet the storm blew through and that tree was just down in the middle of the street. It was over. And so I started doing some research and reading, because we have 2 fairly large live oak trees in our house, or in our yard at home, one in the front, one in the back. And so I started doing some reading. Why do these trees fall? Because in as much as we were fortunate that one of ours didn't fall, I wanted to think through why the trees were falling and how to do something to prevent it. And thus granted the thoughts for today, because I learned 2 things about the trees falling. And if you're an arborist or you live in that space, you're probably going to have some exception with the way I've unpacked and repacked some of these thoughts. They may not be arborologically correct, but for the most part, there's 2 reasons why those big trees fell. Either A, the root system wasn't fully developed, or the tree itself hadn't been maintained and pruned properly. Stop and think about that. There are definitely going to be storms in our lives. And if the root system isn't strong and the tree hasn't been pruned properly, those big old symbols of success, they will fall. And so I just wanted to think through some of those things with you, right? So with respect to the first issue, we're talking about the trees having not been properly maintained. What we're really talking about there is that the canopies of those trees had too much stuff in them. Over the years, if you own big trees, you need to be sending someone to the trees to trim out all the underbrush stuff, all of the growth in there that's causing it to be too heavy. It's keeping the tree from growing. It's keeping the tree from moving in the right directions, and it's weighing it down. And you notice this mostly, in a non-storm scenario when it rains, the tree will collect the water and then the canopy of it will just start to hunker down. But in the storm scenario where you have heavy rains and high winds, the tree hunkers, it becomes a sail, it catches that wind and gets toppled over. And so the thing that I was thinking about and processing through for today is we're all sort of like that. As we've gotten older, as we age, we collect things. Sometimes it's stuff, sometimes it's, sort of baggage, sometimes it's activities and things that you're doing, and we just collect them up. We just keep gathering and sometimes even hoarding these things. and they just keep gathering up. They build weight in the tree, and eventually they cause this pressure that when the storm comes, if you're holding on to all of these things, when the storm comes, it could cause you to topple over, just like that giant oak north of me. And so my challenge for you guys today would be that as you're growing, as you're getting older, as you're adding rings to your tree, be thinking about the things you need to be pruning, because like I said earlier, the storm will come. And if you're holding on to all of those things, you're running the risk that the storm will topple you over. So be pruning those things out. Be taking those activities that aren't giving life to you and releasing them. It's okay. Be taking all the physical possessions that you're holding on to just because you're hoarding them, and sort through them. Let them go. And let go of the things so that the canopy of your tree is lighter, is airier, it is positioned for growth, it is going to be stable through that storm. The other reason that these trees were falling was because they didn't have great root systems. If I was technologically proficient enough, I would show you a photo here, but in reality, not. But in the tree behind my house, when it tipped over, it looked like someone had taken a chainsaw and just cut the root system off, and the tree was tipped up. The root ball either had been torn apart or didn't exist because the root system hadn't grown very well. And so the thing that I was reading, trying to think like, how do I manage for my own trees, manage them in a way that the storms won't topple them over? The second thing I was reading about was deep watering. There's this like weird stake system. You connect your water hose to it, and you drive this stake into the ground around the perimeter of the canopy of your tree, and it puts water not at the surface. It puts water deep into the ground. And when it puts the water deep into the ground, it causes those roots to not go out to find water. It causes them to grow down to find water. And I just started thinking about how many times, well, first of all, I'm not deep watering my trees. So we bought this thing, we jammed it in the ground, we've begun deep watering the trees to try to establish a better root system so that when and if another storm comes, our roots will be a little hardier and healthier to keep our trees from blowing over. But as I started thinking about today and have an opportunity to talk with you guys, I thought, how many of us aren't deep watering our roots, right? We're spread thin. It kind of speaks to the issue from earlier, but we're spread thin. We're doing a lot of things at the surface level, and we're not putting in deep root watering work on anything. And so I would just challenge you guys to focus on finding those places where you can strengthen your root system by doing some deep work or deep watering, to just kind of continue to mix that metaphor. To continue to do deep work and deep watering, because that is healthy for your trees. It's going to be healthy for your soul. It's going to be healthy for your family. And again, with the management of the canopy of your tree and the establishment of deep root systems for your tree, when the storms invariably come, you're going to be better positioned to keep that tree from falling over. Just a couple of ideas as I wrestled through this week of trying to figure out what in the world am I going to talk about. I had this storm and this personal, like this actual physical storm, this personal story of me trying to figure out how to keep my trees growing. And I thought this is great sort of information or helpfulness for the Mountain Mover Army to take, use, process, and eventually grow. So hope you guys deep water your trees and prune the canopies of those so that your trees are long-standing, long-lasting, and foundationally strong. You guys have a great week, and y'all stay out there and keep moving mountains.